This video demonstrates the steps for building an institutional barrel stove. The exact measurements needed for the construction of the stove will depend on the dimensions of your pot. Instructions for calculating dimensions based on different sized pots are included later on in this video.
I'm Damon Ogle, and I am the Research Director at Aprovecho Research Center. And this is an institutional barrel stove, and this particular design for a stove is made to cook larger quantities of food in orphanages and schools and hospitals, prisons, that sort of thing. And these will accommodate a 50-liter to about 100-liter pot. This is a 60-liter pot, and the pot just fits down inside the stove like so. And you light a fire in the bottom in the combustion chamber, which cleans up a lot of the gases, hot gases that are being produced. The gases come up very close to the outside of the pot, and then they are forced to go back down and exit out the chimney of the stove, which is in this area. We've made this type of stove before, and we found that they're fairly simple to build and fairly effective, and they can be made with very simple tools on site and basically a couple of barrels and a 5-gallon can.
The stove being built in this video is made from two 200-liter metal barrels, one 20-liter metal can, a sheet of heat-resistant metal crafted into parts for the fuel magazine, 6-inch stovepipe, a short piece of conduit, and various fasteners. To build an institutional barrel stove sized correctly for your cooking pot, you must first complete this set of calculations. Correctly sizing the internal passageways of the stove is very important. If the passageways are too small, the stove will not burn properly and smoke may back out of the fuel entrance. Too large, and heat will not be effectively transferred to the pot and will escape up the chimney, thereby reducing the fuel efficiency of the stove. A Microsoft Excel file for accurately calculating the dimensions of the stove is available in the Media section of Aprovecho's website, www.aprovecho.metal. Its components are designed to be easily snapped together to form the rocket elbow that is used as the combustion chamber. The bottom of the fuel magazine has already been snapped into place. The end cap of the combustion chamber is fitted onto the end of the fuel magazine. Lightly tap it into place with a hammer. The corners of the fuel magazine are bent down to lock the end cap into place. The riser section is snapped together. Close the seam using a piece of wood and a hammer. Next, using vice grips, bend the tabs on the top of the riser section outward at 90 degrees. Center the assembled riser on the bottom of the 20-liter metal can and draw a line to mark its position. Draw a second circle 1.25 centimeters in from the first circle. Using tin snips, cut along the inner circle. Using a square-ended pliers, carefully fold down the metal approximately 10 degrees precisely at the outer circle. This causes the metal to bend exactly along the line when struck with a ball-peen hammer. The riser should now fit snugly into the hole in the bottom of the 20-liter can. Using a straight edge across the bottom rim of the 20-liter can, measure vertically to the bottom of the riser tube. With this measurement and using the fuel magazine as a template, trace the outline of the fuel magazine on the outside of the 20-liter can. A second rectangle that is 1/2 centimeter smaller is drawn on the inside of the first rectangle. Using a punch to start a hole, cut out the inner rectangle. Once the inner rectangle is removed, make 4 small cuts from the corners in to the outer rectangle. Fold the edge at the outer rectangle and bend back the metal by striking with a ball-peen hammer. The corners may need to be squared up to allow for the insertion of the fuel magazine. Insert the fuel magazine into the hole until the circular hole in the top of the fuel magazine is lined up with the hole at the bottom of the 20-liter can. Insert the riser and lock it into place by bending up the metal tabs securing it to the fuel magazine. Fill the 20-liter can with a lightweight, insulative material like vermiculite, wood ash, or pumice, being sure that the can is completely full before sealing it. The combustion chamber is now complete. The second barrel is now used to construct the inner skirt. Center the pot upside down on top of the second 200-liter barrel and draw a line around the pot. Now, center the combustion chamber upside down on the barrel and draw an outline. Mark a line 0.75 centimeters in from the inner circle to determine the bend point. Determine the inner rim height, which equals gap A minus gap B, and mark another line at this distance inside of the bend line. Cut out the inner circle. Using pliers, crimp downward at the bend line. Use a ball-peen hammer to pound the inner rim in at 90 degrees. From the line drawn around the circumference of the pot, mark a second line using the calculation for gap D as the distance outward from the pot circumference. This will be a bend line. Draw a third line equal to the calculation for the pocket depth outside of the bend line. Cut the entire top out of the barrel. Cut down to the outermost line. Crimp downward at the bend line to a 90-degree angle. Use a ball-peen hammer to pound the inner rim at 90 degrees. This completes the bottom of the inner skirt. Cut out the top of the second 200-liter barrel and set the top aside for use later. Using the calculated length of skirt, measure down from the top of the barrel and mark a line. Cut around the barrel using a hatchet and hammer. Hammer flat the groove in the barrel. Mark a line around the barrel 1.3 centimeters up from the cut. This is the pocket depth and bend line. With a hacksaw, make a cut through the rim of the barrel. Draw a straight line downward from this point. Using the calculated circumference of the skirt, measure from the cut around the barrel just under the rim and mark this distance. Draw a straight line down the side of the barrel, using the hacksaw to cut through the rim of the barrel at this point. It is now necessary to make an overlapping flap to connect the edges of the skirt at the proper distance. From the first cut in the rim, draw a line 5 centimeters towards the edge to be connected. Cut through the rim again at this point, and remove the 5 centimeter section of the rim. Cut along the 5 centimeter line, creating the connecting flap. Hammer smooth and remove the 5 centimeter rectangle at the bottom. Cut along the other line to create the opposite edge of the skirt. Join the two edges together so that the hacksaw cuts in the rim are adjacent to each other and clamp into place. Punch a hole just below the rim and secure with a screw or pop rivet. Align the bottom edge with the marked lines and punch a hole at least 5 centimeters up from the bottom of the skirt. Secure with a fastener. Bend the bottom edge of the skirt inward along the marked line to create a 45-degree pocket. Don't try to achieve this step in just one pass. Gradually work around the barrel, bending a little bit at a time. Insert the skirt bottom inside of the skirt barrel and rotate into place. The outer bend on the skirt bottom locks into the pocket on the skirt barrel. Place the assembly upside down on a block of wood and use a hammer and vice grips to lock the pieces together. Check to make sure the rim of the skirt assembly is as nearly round as possible. Some adjustments may be required. 4 equidistant holes in the bottom of the skirt assembly, just outside of the combustion chamber rim. Cut 4 spacer tubes to the proper length to ensure that the head of the bolt is exactly the measurement for gap B above the inside bottom of the skirt assembly. Secure the 4 bolts and spacers into place. With the pot upside down on the ground, place the main barrel over the pot and lower the skirt assembly onto the pot so that the pot is snug against the spacer bolts at the bottom of the skirt assembly. Measure the distance from the rim of the skirt assembly to the rim of the main barrel. Using this measurement, subtract 3 centimeters and measure down from the rim on the outside of the main barrel and make a mark. Remove the skirt assembly and flip the main barrel and pot upright. Make 3 equidistant holes around the outside of the barrel at the previously determined height. Make 3 corresponding equidistant holes 3 centimeters below the rim of the skirt assembly. Measure the inside of the barrel and subtract the calculated diameter of the skirt. Divide the result by 2 and use the resulting measurement to cut 3 spacer tubes of this length. Place the skirt assembly inside of the main barrel and install long bolts using the spacer tubes in between the skirt assembly and the main barrel. Secure these into place. Punch 3 equidistant holes in the sides of the skirt assembly 5 centimeters above the bottom. Place enough flat washers under the bolt head so that it protrudes the measurement of gap D from the inside of the skirt. Secure these bolts into place. These bolts are used to ensure correct placement of the cooking pot in the stove. They do not go all of the way through to the assembled stove upside down on top of the pot. Place the combustion chamber upside down on the skirt. Mark a rectangle on the outside of the barrel corresponding to the placement of the fuel magazine. Remove the combustion chamber and mark a second rectangle 8 millimeters to the inside of the first. Cut out the inner rectangle and make small cuts from the inner corners to the corners of the outer rectangle. Bend along the remaining line as before. Square the corners to accommodate the fuel magazine. Replace the combustion chamber, inserting the fuel magazine through the rectangular hole. Cut 2 3 centimeter wide straps from the remaining half of the 200-liter barrel. Fold over the ends of the straps and punch a hole wide enough to accommodate the bolts at the bottom of the skirt assembly. Use the 2 straps to secure the combustion chamber to the bottom of the skirt assembly. Punch a hole at the intersection of the straps and secure with a screw. Secure the shelf into the fuel magazine. With the chimney elbow, trace a circle on the back of the stove opposite the fuel magazine and below the bottom of the skirt assembly. Cut a hole and trim to fit as closely as possible. Craft a chimney brace from the cut-out top of the barrel and secure into place.